Well, good evening.
We're away.
Thanks for coming. I know you know Dennis. I think you know.
No, I
Dennis.
don't know most of them.
He's been around for a long time. He's been doing his job for over 30 years. He also has several side jobs between the dog races and the Muskie Derby. And I'm sure you've seen him. Does an excellent job at that. It's a good thing he's around. Alain used to be a big help, but now he doesn't participate with that.
He fires me.
So it should be interesting about the home inspections and everything. He also does carpentry on the side and when he has time. And he's also renovating, I don't know if you remember when we moved his father's house. And we brought it out towards St. John. And he's also still working on that, right? So,
Long ways.
so hopefully before he gets too old, he'll finish it. So anyway, welcome, and feel free to ask questions. You'll have answers. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Roger. All right, as Roger said, my name's Dennis Sear, lifelong resident of Fort Kent. I grew up right across the street here, spent all my childhood on Pleasant Street and the university. Went to college at Hudson College back in the 80s. After college, I sold insurance and annuities for a while. Then I went more into the construction. My life passion was building stuff for people. So through that, I ended up working for the town of Fort Kent as code officer, and I did that for 20 years. And prior to becoming code officer, I had started my home inspection business because I was working at also a local lumber yard, and I had a lot of people that would come in, customers would come in, and they say, geez, my house gets ice dams, or my electrical outlets keep blowing fuses, and there was always questions like that. So I would kind of go figure out what's going on, and it kind of led to people calling me to say, can you come take a look at this? So over the years, I slowly thought, geez, maybe I should become a home inspector, because there was no one around here. And when I started, I was getting calls from the Bangor area to go down because there was just no one doing it. And this was back in the early 1990s. So my life passion is carpentry, so I don't do a lot of home inspections. If you're going to become a American Society of Home Inspection, you got to do a minimum of 500 even before they consider you to be qualified to become a member. So I thought when I started, 500 would be, I'd never get to there, but I'm way past that now. I try never to do more than 2 in a week, because between all my other jobs and doing the inspections, it takes time to do the inspection, but even longer to go through all the photos and type the reports and get that out in the mail. So it's a lot of office work. Oftentimes I'm up till midnight because I'm also doing carpentry during the day. So I'm pretty busy most of the time. I am certified as the code officer. The state was training us in all the fields like plumbing. I'm a certified plumbing inspector for the state of Maine. I do 6 communities right now. From Allagash to Wallagrass. I'm the plumbing inspector and been doing that since 1997. I'm also certified in the MUBIC codes. And what the MUBIC code is the Maine Uniform Building and Energy Code. So nowadays, if your community has 4,000 people, population of 4,000 or more, you have to have your homes or your projects built to the standards that state of Maine has adopted. So if you're doing a new foundation, you've got to have the right amount of rebar, the right amount of weatherproofing, insulations, and all that, and that's all MUBIC building code. So there's only two individuals in Aroostook County that were certified to do third-party inspections, and that was George Howe and Pascal, who was code officer there, and myself. So we were the only two certified third-party inspectors. What a third-party inspector is, if the community doesn't have an inspector, you can get hired to go in and follow the construction process of someone that's building a home to make sure it's meeting the code. Up here, we don't get calls to do that. There's hardly anyone looking at the buildings that are being constructed right now. Fort Kent has to meet the building code, but you very seldom see an inspector on site checking every stage of the process. The building code consists of, like, this is a 2015 code book here. They're starting to adopt the 2021. So we're almost in 2025, but they're going to be adopting the 21. That's how behind everything is in the construction industry. They never stay current. So the new book coming out will be 2021. It went from the 15 to there, so that's quite a few years. Very few builders in Fort Kent probably have ever used this book. And what it does, to read this book, it starts very easy to go through. It'll start with the footing, the foundation. Every chapter you go through, it's going to go as if you're building the whole house up to the roof. And it's also going to talk about ventilations and insulations and all that. So you almost have to have this all in your head if you get onto a construction site to know what you're looking at. The state of Maine also has the Uniform Plumbing Code, so if you're going to be a certified plumbing inspector, you need to know all this code. So that, being trained in all of that, it blends in good with the home inspection, because when I go do a home inspection, I know what the building code is and I know what the plumbing codes are. So when I see plumbing in basements and stuff, I can point it out fairly quickly to the buyer or the seller that's with me. There's also other codes. This is a life safety code. This book here also, this talks like handrails, bedroom egress windows, doors, fireproofing. So I mean, there's pages and pages and pages of stuff. Handrails on decks and patio walkways. So there's a lot to the codes that I get involved with doing my home inspections. A lot of the other inspectors, well, they don't have that training in that because they weren't code officers and the state wasn't providing them free training. For 20 years, I had free training through the state, so that helped me out a lot. There also is in the state of Maine now an energy code, residential energy code. So every home has to be built to a certain standard, blower door testing or the amount of insulation. So there's other standards to do that also. I'm also a certified radon tester. Now, to be a certified radon tester, you have to take a national exam. And what that does is, once you get your certification, I can test for radon gases in real estate transactions. So if someone's buying a home or selling a home and they want radon tested, it has to be done by a certified tester. You can't just buy a kit and say, a realtor can't go out, buy a kit and put it in the house and say it passed radon. It has to be a certified. And I had a lot of realtors asking me over the years, can you test for radon? Are you certified to do that? And so I did eventually go through that process to get certified. So I also do the radon testing, and of course through a home inspection we do water testing and stuff like that. Also, my experience, I have experience in shoreline zoning through code work, so floodplain management, shoreline zoning, that all pertains to buying a home, because a home may be close to a river, maybe close to a lake. People don't know what the standards are or what they can and cannot do, so it helps in my background when I'm doing a home inspection I can talk to a potential buyer and say, well, you won't be able to go this many feet to a brook or whatever because it's a intermittent stream or a perennial stream. There's differences there. Let's see, what else do we have here? So what is a home inspection? I have a lot of people that think, and they do call me to try to figure out the price of a home, and that's the appraisal part of it. So a bank is going to have an appraiser go to a home that's for sale, and he's going to try to establish a price that that home is worth. And what an appraiser does, if it's 3 homes in an area and one is for sale, he's going to compare the other 2 homes, what they sold for or what they were thinking of asking, to what the home that he's looking at. He may compare it to a similar home in Van Buren. He may compare it to a home in Madawaska to try to get a basic price. So when the bank's lending money, they know how much they should be lending for that property. In case it forecloses, they'll know what the value is. The home inspection is completely different though, because I'm going to be going in, and even though the house is listed, let's say for $100,000, I'm going to be going in and I'm going to be looking at the siding, the windows, the foundation, the yard grading, roofing, every major component of the house basically. And if there's items that need to be addressed, if it's let's say a complete electrical overhaul, it could be $5,000 to redo all the wiring in the house or upgrade. So that's different than the appraiser. He's going to say the house is worth $100,000, but I'm going to come in and say, well, there's $35,000 worth of safety stuff that probably should get addressed. And I had an individual in Grand Isle. He had just come out of the military. He didn't tell me this, but he had me come do an inspection. And when I was all done, and he asked me, what do you think it costs to repair the roof and redo the septic and get new water and all this other stuff? And I said, well, we sat down, we kind of went through a rough price, because I am a building contractor, so I know what it costs to replace a roof or whatever. And we came out to about $30,000, and the bank was asking $33,000 for the property. It was his grandfather's house, and he said, I knew it. And I said, well, what did you know? He says, they were asking way too much. And he kept telling them that. But so they had a lot of work to do on the house, new windows, new doors, and all that other stuff. So yeah, an appraiser can say a house is worth so much, but once the inspection's done, it may have some dollar value that needs to get addressed. Who requests inspections? Banks oftentimes will call me to do a foundation inspection. They may have property that they're repossessing or something, and they've had some issues with water coming in or basement cracks and stuff. So the bank will sometimes call me. Most of the time, a realtor will sometimes call me. Most of the time it's a buyer, and lately, the last 2 or 3 years, it's been buyers from all over the United States. People from Montana, Texas. They're moving to this area. It's a nice area to live. They're getting away from the hustle and bustle and the fires and the floods, and so they're purchasing properties up here that they see online. They look beautiful, and they're relying on me to go in and see if it's actually valued at the right amount or how much work has to be done to it. So I've seen that a lot lately. I never meet the people. I very seldom meet the people I'm doing those type of inspections for. We just do it all online, and they take my word for it, and that's how it works. I do a lot of photos. I go into a house, every issue that I see, I take a photo of. So when I get back to do my reports, I follow my photos and I address all those issues. When I first started out, this was the inspection form that I had started with. It used to be a 3-part color-coded form, carbonless, and it went through every part of the house, but it's more of a checklist. And you will see home inspectors that it's more of a checklist type of report, where it'll address the foundation and you just check off, is it acceptable, is it not acceptable, or is it okay? And then you move on from there. And I felt after 5-10 years of doing inspections, I said this just wasn't thorough enough. I said, yeah, the foundation's not acceptable, but what is not acceptable about it? And they give you one little line to fill in, like to describe what was wrong. So I kind of went away from the checklist. This kind of gave me a guide in the beginning, but now now that I know the steps to follow, I can pretty much just go through structure, foundation, electrical. It's the same routine every time, but different photos, of course. Let's see. Real estate professionals, sometimes they don't like having me come in. And the problem with home inspections is the process always waits to the last 10 days. People will sign the buy-sell agreements, and then they give them 10 days to do the inspections or to do appraisals or to do all the other legwork. Well, by the time I get the time set up and the date set up, and depending if they need radon testing or water testing, sometimes 10 days, it makes it real tight for me to do the inspection and get it to the buyer. And usually it's 2 or 3 days before the closing, and then all of a sudden the deal starts to fall through. Like, whoa, we got to get an electrician in here. We got to get a plumber in here. We need a septic tank pumped or whatever. And so it ends up that I delay closing, and they always blame it on the inspectors, you know. So it would be nice if everyone that listed their house prior to putting it as a listing, get an inspection done, and we could address some of those issues prior to you listing it. And that way, when you do have a potential buyer, you can say, we've already had it inspected. This is what he found. This is what we fixed. So there's not big surprises at the last minute. And of course, the realtors, if you go in and you delay, that's money out of their pocket, or if the price of the home goes down, it's money out of their pocket. So I did have just a quick story on one lady from California called me. She's a retiree. She was buying a house up in the Allagash. She saw online. Took her life savings to buy the house. It was supposed to be turnkey. All the photos look beautiful. So she came out from California. It was in the springtime. Everything was brown, dead. You know how it is in the spring mud season? Everything was terrible. She got to the house. There was no more furniture, no more appliances in the house. So she called me. She's crying like she thought she was buying a turnkey house where she could just move out. She calls me to go do inspection. At that point, she had already closed, so there's nothing she can do. I went to do the inspection, and it's a dirt floor, big old farmhouse, and the oil tank had been leaking. So in the report, the oil tank's leaking, and I told them that you should get the oil technicians to come look at the tank to see how much oil has dripped in the soil. So as soon as the oil company came and they looked at it, by law, they've got to contact DEP if they think it's more than a gallon or whatever. So DEP had to come up and look at it. They ended up having to tear the house down because the soils were contaminated. There's nothing you could do about it. So the house is now gone. And the lady, she had lost her whole life savings on that house, and she was crying on the phone, and she was going to have to go through the lawyers to see if she could get some of her money back. And so I don't know whatever happened. I just know the house is no longer there in Allagash. And so
it amazes me how people can buy a property without even looking at it.
Yeah, well, and so they rely on someone like me to do it. So yeah, it's important. People from away, they're all used to getting home inspections. People in the area here, it's something new to them. Oftentimes they say my brother-in-law's a carpenter, or my father's built houses all his life and everything looks good, or my uncle's an electrician, So, okay, just want to quickly go through what I'm going to be looking at when I do an inspection. This is basically, if you're going to do a thorough inspection, we're going to look at the structure, the electrical, the plumbing, the heating, and the cooling. I'm also going to be looking at the drainage around the outside of the buildings. Oftentimes water drains towards the foundations, or the driveway pavement's cracked, broken, issues there. I'm going to be in the basement looking at the main support beams, any of the floor joists, support columns, foundation, Dishwasher, mostly with the drainage issues. Garbage disposal, same thing, drainage. Not so much trash compactor. Refrigerator, normally the water line that feeds the fridge. Vent hood, very critical. Every range hood has to be vented outside. Stovetop, sometimes they're completely disgusting. Ovens, sinks, toilets. Toilets, big things. Are they loose on the floor? If they're loose, that means the wood might be rotted below, so they're loose. Oftentimes they're not adjusted on the fill pipe, so it overflows into the water. Constantly runs in the toilet tank, and it's going in the overfill pipe. And I'm sure if you look at yours at your house this evening, you got to make sure, because it's going to create condensation on the outside of the tank if water is constantly flowing. So I'll see that often in toilets. Floors, showers, bath venting, very important. Floor covering, some of the older homes were looking for asbestos tiles, asbestos product in the floor coverings. Heat distribution, ductwork. I see all kinds of nightmare ductwork and dirty, and the mice and rats living in the ductwork, and now they've passed away, and that's blowing that fur and that bacteria all over the house. And I've seen a lot over the years. Hot water heaters, very critical. Relief valves, pressure relief valves and stuff. See that all the time. I mean, hot water tanks being installed just as dangerous. A hot water tank, if the pressure relief pipe is blocked or doesn't meet the code, is not safe. A hot water tank can blow through a 2-story building, through the roof, and land on the front. It's been known to land on the front yard. So a water tank has to have pressure relief valves, and they have to be sized the right way in the right location, and I see that all the time, violations. So it's very critical on relief valves. Fireplace, of course. Most of the fireplaces around here, the dampers are wide open or rusted out. Wood stoves, see it all the time. The wrong flue pipe connecting wood stoves, pellet stoves. So a lot of stuff that I see there. Basement, crawl space, lab, moisture issues usually. Cabinets, I've seen brand new kitchen cabinets. No range hood. Brand new kitchen cabinets all full of grease, doors warped, stained because people are boiling pasta, and it's just being absorbed by those brand new cabinets above. And so there's a lot of issues with that. Handrails, I'm a big pusher for handrails, because in Fort Kent in the last 10 years we've had at least 5 people pass away falling downstairs. And I'm sure if you think about it, you'll probably know some of them. But yeah, handrails and stairs, very, very critical of that. Sump pumps, see a lot of sump pumps connected to public, the utility district's water. So if you've got a sump pump, we had a house in Park Circle that had 20,000 gallons a day coming into the house, and he had his sump pump connected. Well, that water is being pumped to 4 pump stations before it gets to the treatment plant. So, as taxpayers, we're all paying for that water to get pumped from here to there before it gets pumped back into the river after it's been treated. So, yeah, illegal connections of sump pumps is a big thing. Roof shingles conditions. If you don't have proper ventilation, you're going to have roof shingles curling, cracking. Roof wood, you see that more in the attic when I see houses that don't breathe and you get condensation, mold. Brand new homes that have mold in the attic or condensation issues in the winter. Roof rafters, collar ties. What a collar tie is, it's when you have a rafter in an attic, a third of the way up between, you have to have a board that connects it, because the strongest thing is an A-frame, is an A shape in construction. Anything that's built like an A shape is strong. So the collar tie makes that letter A basically. So I see a lot of collar ties missing. Trusses, that's another thing where everyone's putting in factory built trusses now. But every factory built truss that you buy, if it comes from a rustic truss for instance, it's going to come with a big packet of papers, bigger than this, and it's going to show you how to install them, how many braces you have to put, how many strong backs, and if a builder is not following their plan, there's no warranty on those trusses. So they've got to be installed according to their plans, and I see trusses all over the place that have no bracing, no lateral bracing, no strong backs, improperly connected to sill plates. I see it all the time. And there's no reason for it because, I mean, that information is provided with the truss. Doors, siding, trim, walkways, a lot of tripping hazards on walkways, a lot of pavers that people just plop down, and tripping hazards. Wiring, of course, see a lot of that, issues all over the place. Vent pipes, that's up through the roof. Sewer vent pipes, very critical. 3-inch pipe going up through the roof. Minimum code is 24 inches above the roof, so the snow doesn't block that in the winter months. So a lot of these prefab homes that came into Fort Kent, or a lot of the mobile homes that have come in, they don't ship them with long pipes sticking out. They ship them with the pipes at the roof. And your plumber is supposed to extend that up, or who's ever installing the mobile home is supposed to extend it up, and they don't. So that gets sealed over in the winter on a crusty snow, and then all those sewer gases end up back into the house, and people are sick, and there's humidity issues, everything else. So we're looking at stuff like that. Chimneys, a lot of issues with that. Insulation, dryer venting, wood rot, yard grading, windows, attic. So all these things basically get looked at. Decks, patios, driveways, smoke alarms, garage door opener, door safety. I see a lot of garage door openers where they install the opener and they'll put the safety sensor up right by the opener facing each other because they don't want to run that little wire down to the side of the door. Well, the safety sensor is designed when the door closes. If there's a kid playing under the door or a bicycle or a pail, it's going to reverse. It's not going to crush anything or kill anyone. So the contractor that installs a garage door and puts the safety sensors up on the ceiling is assuming liability if someone gets killed and that door comes down. I mean, I'm sure a lawyer would say, those safety sensors, who installed those? And I see it all the time. So right now, I just want to touch base a little bit on the American Society of Home Inspectors. And this basically is just a list of either what I'm not looking for or what I should be looking at. So air conditioning here. And I won't go through all these because it's 2 or 3 pages, but people think, well, the inspector didn't tell me how much insulation in the walls. Well, we can't see through walls, and so some things is not part of the home inspection. Other things you'll see on the list, sometimes they'll talk about, maybe drainage, plumbing drainage or something. With my certifications, I usually address more of the issues that they might say on these lists that is not applicable, but oftentimes I'll do that, and that's where I usually get like, boy, that was a lot more thorough than the last inspection that I had, only because I have the training and the years of also being a contractor. So what I want to do, if anyone has any questions right now, we're going to go after. If you have questions, then I've got a slideshow of photos that we're going to slowly go through of one of the houses that I've inspected. But does anyone have any questions at this point? Roger.
Do we have a radon problem in this area?
The whole state of Maine has radon. That's uranium in the soil. The state of Maine is 100% loaded with radon in the soils. So every breath that you take living in Maine, you're breathing in radon gases. So right now we're breathing in radon, but it's not to a level that normally hurts anyone. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer in the United States behind smoking, so it's very critical. And what radon is very microscopic particles that when you breathe them in, they get stuck to inside your lungs and you can never get rid of them. So over time, if you have radon in your home and you're spending a lot of time in your home, your lungs are getting filled with the radon particles. It's uranium, and that's what causes the lung cancer. So yes, we have very high levels. I did a house in Slybrook Road, not far from Lake Road Grocery, had 500 times more than should be in the house. And it was a fairly new home. So it doesn't mean the older homes have it or the newer homes have it. Almost every home should be tested. This one had a poured concrete foundation and poured slab, but he had radon gases coming through a floor drain or a crack in the foundation. I've done, most of the time, if I see a dirt floor in a house, or an open sump pump pit or a floor drain, I'll recommend getting a radon test done at that point. To do a radon test, you have to close the house up for a minimum of 12 hours. You can go in and out, but they don't want windows and doors left open, so we're trying to build the gases inside the house. You only test the lowest living floor, so you don't test an unfinished basement, but you test where people will be living. And then my results get sent to a lab in Winslow, Maine, and within a day or two they'll get back to me on the levels. But I do find it quite often. You never know which home has it or not.
So what do you do for it? I mean, if your home is that
Well,
bad.
at that point, I'm certified as a tester. Now I would have to get certified as a mitigator. So there is a mitigator. I think County Abatement in Presque Isle does mitigation. So what mitigation is they're going to drill a hole in your they're going to try to seal every crack that they can find, and they're going to drill a hole in your basement floor. They're going to insert a pipe with like a vacuum system, and that's going to run 24/7. And the problem is they used to put those up in the attic, the motors, but now they put them on the outside of the houses. So you'll see houses in Fort Kent. There's one right across from Gas and Go that has a radon mitigation. It looks like a 4-inch plastic pipe with a motor on it, and that just sucks air from underneath the slab. And then you have a meter inside the house that'll tell you, if the pump's working all the time. Now the new building codes, we try to get away from that. Before you pour your basement slab, you put in piping around the internal edge, and you run that piping to the center of the building if you can. And then if you test for radon at a later date and you have radon, then you just connect to that one pipe and you send it up through the roof, just like a sewer vent pipe, and you should be good to go. You don't need the motor and you don't need all that, but not all the builders are pushing to have radon piping put in. And it just takes 2 or 3 hours to put that piping in, and it's just a cheesy pipe. It's not that expensive. And it works like a charm. But so yeah, radon is an issue around here.
See, I always thought that radon was more prevalent in soils that were granite, like in the
It's from uranium, so it's from uranium soil, so whatever. I mean, granite does have some. People were putting in granite countertops for many years, and radon was coming out of the granite tops. Yeah. So.
Older homes with granite foundations with big blocks.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that's a whole different topic. The radon, we could go for quite a while on that, and that too. I get a lot of stories on that.
I think with all of what you said so far, I'm going to sell my house and move in with you.
Well, my house is not perfect either. And that's another thing. I mean, every house, there's never a perfect house. And I tell that to people that are either selling or buying. I say, I mean, you might be overwhelmed by the report, but there's never a perfect house. I'm going to find something in every house. Brand new houses, older houses. There's always something that needs to get addressed. Okay, I think we'll take a little break, Don, and you want to... and if anyone has questions, again, I'm free while he take him a minute to turn over to the photos. I mean, there's a lot of horror stories out there on homes that I've looked at. I had one in Soldier Pond that I went in, and the old lady had just passed away, and the son was trying to sell a house, and I went in. I was 3 times I had to leave the basement to go out in the yard and almost throw up, because that's how bad the indoor air quality was of that home. And that poor old lady lived there all her life on there. So you see a lot of the old people that have, myself included, have bronchitis and respiratory problems, asthma. It's the indoor air quality. And as you feel sicker, you stay home from work and you stay in the environment that's causing any home that has high humidity. Of course you'll have bronchitis and stuff like that, but your clothes will be damp. Put on damp clothes in the winter months, easier to catch colds. Your house doesn't heat as well because your insulation's damp in the walls, so it's not performing like it should. So it costs you more to heat your homes. And so ventilation and low humidity is critical into a home. Okay, so arrows up and down. Yep. So what we have here is Don had come home a couple nights ago, and it's like, where do we start? Because I got thousands and thousands of photos. So I just put in a CD card and said, okay, let's start with this home here. This is a home, one of the valley towns. I did maybe a year or 2 ago. And I said, Don, let's just start from scratch one. We'll see how this goes. Now, most people, you see this house online here. Beautiful home, looks nice brick and garage door and gate and driveway, and I mean that looks like a house that anyone would want, especially if you saw it online. Of course, there's never a perfect house. Oh, okay. So here we are, the front of the house, pulled up, come in the driveway, said, oh, this one's going to be fun to inspect. Well, I won't be here too long. This looks like a nice house. So we started looking at the house. I always take a photo of the front of the house, sides of the house. This one you can see it's an overhead service entrance. Okay. So issues with overhead service entrance. You got to are they contacting tree branches? Is the wires chafed? I had a home in Long Lake. The tree grew right around the wire. And the electrical panel in the building was humming all the time, and every time the wind blew, the tree was pulling on the electrical line. So yeah, overhead service. Nowadays you prefer to see an underground service, because what happens right now is, okay, the rainwater is going to hit this side of the building here, is going to follow that wire down to the meter socket. So will there be some issues on electrical? We'll look. What else do we see on the house? Nice brick, okay, chimney top cap. Gutter seems to be away from the house. Few trees around. Okay, it looks okay. This is the back of the house. You got some bushes, rain gutters, beautiful. Siding looks nice. Roofing looks nice. Nice walkway. It looks like a nice walkway. Pavers, and so far so good. Side of the other side of the house that faces the sun now. Well, that's wood siding. Been recently painted the house because they knew it was trying to sell the house. Well, that's wood siding, but look what's happening to that siding. That's all curling and buckling and popping out. The nails that pop, the siding curling. The sun beats hard on that side of the house. So, there's a little bit of issues that are going on with that we'll have to get addressed. Pavers over here, I mean, they haven't been very well maintained, but a nice low spot right here. So the water gathers when the snow melts in the spring or a heavy rainstorm. So will there be issues in the basement? Who knows? Gate looks okay, but you try to open the gate. Well, I'll show you that in a minute. Trees, bushes up against a house. Probably the worst thing you can have against a house holds the humidity against the siding and stuff. So, okay, well, the report, maybe you should trim back some of the bushes and fix the low spot in the pavers, and the siding's going to need to get addressed at some point in time. The tree branches are kind of touching the roof. Well, let's go in the backyard. Wow, there's the tennis court. Beautiful. We got tennis court now. That looks nice online. Oops. Did I skip some, Dawn? But let's go. This is the front window of the house. There's that bay window in the front of the house. From the road, it looked nice. So what's happening here is the rainwater's been hitting on that sill, rotting everything out. This all needs to be repaired. Glass single strength glass, wasn't an insulated glass. That window would cost you, thousands of dollars to repair that, but it was built prior to the insulated glass and stuff, so single strength glass, not energy efficient. There's some moisture here, but is that moisture getting in? Well, it kind of looks like it's on the inside of the house now, on the windowsill. So we'll have to address that. Well, is the roof leaking up there? Who knows? Oh, we're inside the house right now. Look at the windowsill. So that's rotted. There's insulation underneath that sill. So is the insulation now compromised a little bit? Who knows? We can't see through. So at some point in time, someone's going to have to do some work on the window. At the very least, scrape, prime, and paint. Front walkway now, pavers. We see a lot of pavers. And of course, if they're not laid on a flat surface, they're sticking up. So tripping hazards now. You get mailman or someone coming to your house, visiting, trips and falls and knocks themselves out. Homeowner's liable for that stuff. Again, some plants close. We'll keep going. Foundation windows. Seal failure, number one. The glass is all cloudy, so the rainwater has gotten between the glass. You no longer can see out that window. And of course, the sill's got some wood rot to it. You see where the water sits right on that sill there. It's got nowhere to go, so it backs up into the window. Garage doors. Gee, someone damaged two of the lower panels. So, the door functions, but the gate, the gate's got a big crack, a big separation here now. That means the post. Something's happened to both support posts or hinges. So what's going on with that? The back window, nice big crack in the glass in the back. Can we get replacement glass for that? You can probably get the glass through Portland Glass and be $300-400 to fix that. What caused that to break though? Is it the window that literally moved? Or is it someone that was playing baseball? And basement windows on the other side. Well, these are leaking. These are really cold in the winter, so they put fiberglass insulation into them. They leave it there year round now, so those windows probably are leaking quite a bit of air. Someone wanted to insulate. And there again, you've got the big window up above that's deteriorating a little bit. Vegetation right next to the. Okay, this is the corner. Well, what happened to this corner here? How come that brick is all broken? Well, that gutter probably disconnected at some point in time, and someone put screws to reconnect it, but it probably dripped for many years. Water went down there, froze in the winter months, broke the bricks. Is water getting in underneath this flashing? Who knows? This is gutter directing. So now we've got broken brick here and there and there. I don't know if you can still find yellow brick very easily in the area, but really that probably should be taken care of before it deteriorates all the other ones. Now we got the trees in the backyard. Well, they're all overhanging the roof. They're hitting onto the gutters. They're touching the asphalt roofing. They're damaging that. So yeah, we can take a brush cutter or a little chainsaw and trim this back. And well, the gutters probably are full of pine needles. Maybe the gutters aren't working now. Maybe that's what happened. They overflowed and they broke that window that was on the side of there. But now how much does it cost to cut this tree out if you want to get rid of that tree? Because the roots are getting quite large and the tree's getting larger every year. So you got to get a landscaper in there. Okay, maybe $300, $400, $500 to cut a tree or more. Yeah. But how does he get his equipment in there now? He's got a little gate with patio with pavers on one end, and the landscape drops quite a bit. So I don't know if he can get his equipment truck back there. So if he's got to do it by hand with his little John Deere tractor, they're cutting limb by limb by limb in pieces and pieces and hauling it out. So what you thought was $500-600 may be $2,000 or $3,000. I had a house in Van Buren, had 6 huge those Barmagillion trees. I mean, they're 6 feet in diameter. They had 6 of them between the 2 buildings. They had a house in the backyard and neighbor right there, and this guy's buying the house, and everything looked okay until we got to the yard and started looking at those trees. I said, realize that, how are you going to cut these trees out of here? 10 feet between the houses with a 6-foot tree growing in the middle, and they're on his land. If they'd be on the neighbor's, well, it might be a different story, but they're on his land. If you're at odds with your neighbor to begin with, on your new neighbor, and you got to go there to cut those trees down, you may not be able to drop a branch on his roof. So trees can get very expensive around houses, and people buying houses don't think of things like this. So as an inspector, that's just, it triggers the buyer to like, yeah, maybe we ought to seem to negotiate some pricing on maybe trimming some of these branches or getting rid of the trees themselves. Screen door, I mean, a simple thing, you could have had the screen repaired, but they just put duct tape on it. So now you peel this duct tape off, or you're probably going to peel all the paint off the door. And it would have been a simple thing to repair the screen. Wow, rain gutters. Jeez. There's no trees on this side of the house, so can you imagine what the other side looks like? These are those beautiful things you see on TV all the time, that everyone should have these so you don't have to go up and clean your gutters. Well, what happens is they fill up with pine needles anyway. And what I found, oftentimes the asphalt roofing, the granulars come off the asphalt roofing over the years. They land in that gutter, and some of these gutter companies are screwing those protectors in place, so you can never get under those to clean the rocks out. So the gutter fills with rock and water gets ponding in there. The homeowners don't know it because they think they're protected on top. But in this case, I mean, the needles need to be cleaned, number one. But how much other stuff is down in the gutter, we don't know, So, you can't believe everything you see on TV, how great it is. Now let's look at this roofing here. This is not that old roofing. This is 30-year warranted roofing, architectural. Probably been installed 10 years ago, maybe 15 at the most, but beautiful roofing. Warranted 30 years if it's installed properly. But what's all this stuff on the roof here? That doesn't make any sense. It looks like rocks. So we're going to come to that, but oops, what happened to the chimney top? Geez, all the rocks on the roof are coming from the chimney cap. So that probably weighs 1,000 pounds at least, that cap. The rebar sticking out here. So that's deteriorating every year. It's breaking up. Rebar sticking out now. All that stuff is probably falling in the flue. There's 2 flues. One goes in the living room fireplace and the other one goes down to the basement. Look at the bricks here are cracked and broken. Mortar joints are probably starting to deteriorate right here. Water's getting in, so these joints are probably broken. That's a nice chimney there. Originally, that yellow brick, big expensive chimney. To repair a chimney like that, I can't even, probably what, $5,000-$10,000 anyway. But that's a heavy cap to try to take off of there and work that. So good luck finding a chimney mason that's going to want to work on that. Now we get to the backyard. There's a boathouse there, but someone should have trimmed that tree back because that's contacting the roofing and that's hitting the building, keeping moisture in the boathouse. Here's the beautiful steps that go to the tennis court. These pavers, well, this one's broken, but these are all loose here because the water's gotten under them, loosened them all up. So they're pretty much all a tripping hazard now. These walls are starting to fall over because the water was pushing them over. So you get maybe the high school tennis team that wants to go practice on your tennis court. The kids are running up and down there and someone falls, bangs their head, concussion or whatever, who's liable? So all of this has to be in the report that these are tripping hazards, loose stones. So just that in itself to find a mason or a block guy to repair that or make that solid, probably have to remove it all and do some other type of step. Now we're on to the tennis court. Well, they've had issues in the past because someone's been cutting out pieces and adding pieces, and see how the bubbling going? So at some point in time, how far gone is the tennis court? Is it all bubbling up? And I don't know what the cost is to repair stuff like that, but I'm sure it's not cheap. So you're buying the house and it's coming with that tennis court. This is a little boathouse. Look at the roofing. The roof's not breathing, so the cap's all deteriorated now, and the shingles are deteriorated a little bit. That chimney's pieces are falling off, so that too is you could have bricks and mortar falling down off of that. So safety issue there. Oh, what'd they do here? They put they had a beautiful pool in the backyard, right where the tree guy was going to pass to go cut the trees maybe, once he took the gate out of the way. But now they got a swimming pool that the liner was failed or something failed, so they filled it with dirt and they planted grass. Well, at some point in time, someone's going to want that out of there. Are you going to live with that? Is it right? Probably not. Things are going to continue to deteriorate in there. That plastic's going to get brittle. I was scared to even step down into it. It had a drop of about 6 or 8 inches onto that grass, but I didn't know what was under the grass. So someone that had a few beers, or you had a party, and they go and jump in there. They trip, number one, falling into it. So how much is that going to cost to pull that out of the ground and repave that? Or this is all nice cement work around here, so could get expensive. Now we got the lights. Why is this all rusted? Is this fixture a legal fixture? Is it rusting like that for some reason? Or is it just that maybe the gutters are plugged and the water's getting into the soffit? Look at all the water staining going on in the soffit here. So where's that water coming from? And how good is this electrical connections are in there now? Who knows? Till you get an electrician over here to look at that stuff. Looks like there's a little bit of work to be done there too. But the gutters, look how full they are of needles and stuff. So how much stuff is gonna... There's a window right above facing the road. This is the front porch, little porch overhang. But they put the overhang, they put the roof line right to the base of the window. So any snow or water that splashes down or stays during the winter months is going to be up against the window. So that's all rotted. How much damage occurred below that, we don't know until you pull the window out and start prodding down in there. But as you can see, this is an awning window. So if this is a bedroom and they're using this window maybe as an escape, well, that window in the wintertime is not going to be able to swing out. An awning window swings out. So they can't get out of this in the winter months because that's going to be frozen solid. And then they just pounded in a few roof nails on the last row and put a little bit of caulking and called it good. There's a sewer vent pipe. So that's telling me that that's an older type plumbing system in there. That's a galvanized pipe. You don't see that very often. But the boot that they used, that the roofers, the boot was made for PVC pipe, not galvanized. So the diameter of the pipe's smaller. So the roofer went and put caulking all around here trying to seal that up. Well, caulking fails. It's going to dry out and the water's going to go in the boot. The boot was actually crushed down from the weight of the snow. So now the water was puddling right in there. Siding, the cement siding now, they've had issues with cement clapboard type siding. It's supposed to have a minimum 1 inch between the roofing and that siding right there so the siding doesn't deteriorate. So when that was installed, they didn't know that that's what the manufacturer required. This was the basement entryway from the garage down into the basement. Well, yeah, well, that's a nice entry, but you had, some damage going on there. But where are the handrails? I mean, someone walking with a bag of groceries, that's quite a fall there. So it should have handrails, guardrails on top, handrails going down, lighting, no lighting, so if they happen to go down in the nighttime or whatever, very dangerous situation. Oops. think that's all for these, Don.
Wow.
But I didn't get into any of the electrical. We did have a few photos in the slide of the electrical panel. It was all rusted on the base of it. I think we had that on the first
opening
slide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had multiple pictures there.
Yeah, see there, that's inside the electrical panel. You know, so where's that water coming from? All these circuits here are all rusted out. When you get a rusted connection, the wire tends to overheat in those connections. I suspect it was from the cable, the water running on the outside of the building was running out. I've seen electrical panels like this. I had one in Stockholm where I popped the cover off. It was 100% full of pine cones. They had left an opening in the panel where one of the wires once was. They had popped it out, and a squirrel was able to get in there, and he filled the panel 100%. You couldn't have put an acorn in there, and it was just a matter of time where the heat of that electrical would have caught on fire, caught those flammable pine cones, and probably burned the house down. I saw a house in Fort Fairfield that it was completely black inside the panel. Nice finished basement, beautiful. Wasn't finding too much wrong with the house until I popped the panel cover off. I went upstairs because the old gentleman was selling the house was upstairs, and I said, I don't understand what happened in your panel. It's all completely 100% black. And he says, oh, he said, we had a fire. So they had a fire 10 or 15 years prior. Completely burnt all the basement. And of course they had covered everything over with drop ceiling and stuff. But no one had ever cleaned inside the panel. And he hadn't disclosed it on his on the real estate. He had completely forgot that he had a fire. But yeah, they hadn't cleaned it. So see a lot of inside panels, double tapping where like this panel had probably one more space for another circuit breaker here. But a lot of panels, what they'll do is they'll double up these wires on the same breaker. I'm kind of seeing it more with the heat pumps, where the heat pump guys are wiring their own heat pumps now, and they're not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a certified electrician, I believe anyway, and they're coming in and they're maybe robbing one of the breakers that was there, and they're adding to it, or they're tossing a wire over so they have sole possession of that breaker. But I'm seeing different things like that. The color coding of the wiring has helped now on the newer homes, because a yellow wire goes to a 20 amp breaker. It's a 12 gauge wire, so it goes to 20. So it's a little bit easier now to do inspections. The older wiring, you had to be able to tell the size of the wire gauge by visually looking at it. And when you're pulling a panel off, you're looking at the size of these breakers. If this is a 15 amp breaker, it probably is connected to a 14 gauge wire. If an electrician did it, that's what he would do. But if you've got 30 amps and your wire is only designed to handle 20 amps, now you've got an issue with overheating and fire and everything else. Oftentimes, the older homes, you'll have one wire leaving a panel, run across the basement floor, go to a junction box, and then 5 wires coming out of the junction box. So that one breaker is now feeding 5 circuits, and then you follow the wire and you get to another junction box that has 4 more wires coming out of it. So that one circuit breaker might have 9 different electrical circuits on it. And someone that is weed whacking outside and hits a wire and might kick the refrigerator circuit at the same time, or the bathroom fan, or the bathroom lights, or who knows where those are all connected to. So at that point, it's like, well, you need to get an electrician in here to look at this to see if this needs to be upgraded, or at least give us some advice on what to do with electrical. So I spend a lot of time in the basements, a lot of stuff with electrical. Plumbing issues we didn't get into, but there's hundreds of plumbing issues where people don't support pipes correctly, or the wrong fittings, wrong connections. Oftentimes what happens, you'll see underneath sinks where they have the wrong drainage trap, no venting. So a drainage trap that's not vented, that has no access to venting, can siphon itself out And if that trap siphons itself out, then you get sewer gases coming back up into the bathroom or the kitchen. So oftentimes, a telltale sign is when I go into a bathroom and there's an air freshener in the bathroom, one of those Glades or whatever. People are smelling that the bathroom's raunchy, and it's always raunchy, and they blame it on their husband or whatever. And, actually, the trap is siphoning itself out, and it doesn't have access to vents, so the sewer gases are coming into the bathroom or through the shower drain or whatever, and they're smelling that, so they're trying to overpower the smell with a Glade air freshener or whatever. So it's a telltale sign when I see stuff like that. Roofing, ventilation. I see roofs going on as we speak. I asked some of the roofers, how come you don't put a ridge vent up there? Because we do have a ventilation code now, and everything has to be vented correctly. And oftentimes I'll get the response that, well, there wasn't one there, so I didn't put it back because it's not in my contract. I contracted to replace the roof, but you went and put a 35-year warranted roofing on that house, and you didn't put the vent on. So the first time someone makes a claim on the roofing in 15 years that it's curled or cracked or brittle or losing pieces, and the salesman drives up in the driveway and he looks and he sees no venting, you never had a warranty. The day they installed it without the proper venting is the day you lost your warranty. And I see it occurring all over. So, you know, education for some of the contractors would be nice. The state does not offer training for any of these guys. Like I say, a lot of them don't have the books. There's been talk about having contractors being certified in the state of Maine, but it always gets defeated in the legislature. And it would take a big education to train some of these. The older folks probably wouldn't want to go through training and would get out of the construction industry. But a few of the builders in town, I know one for sure has the book, and he's a good builder. And he ventilates, he insulates, he does everything according to the book standard, which is good. He's not being inspected, he just does it as a principle because he doesn't want to have callbacks in years to come. So that's a good builder when he's responsible like that.
Are they liable?
They would be, if it's not vented properly. I mean, I'm sure a homeowner could come back to the roofer and say, hey, 15 years ago you roofed my house and you didn't put the venting, and the package says on the venting, on the roofing to properly vent it, and it wasn't. If you're getting ice dams, yeah, definitely you've got some ventilation issues. You got to be careful when they insulate in the attic that they don't over-insulate and they block any airflow. On a hot summer day, your attic should be just a few degrees hotter than it is outside. And I go to in a lot of attics and it's 50 degrees hotter up there. That's an indication it's just not breathing enough. You're not getting the air circulation. If you don't get the air circulation, it dries out your roofing, it curls it, makes it brittle, so your 35-year roofing is no longer going to last 15, 20 years at the most. But in the winter, you'll get ice damming, and then you'll have some condensation issues also. So you might see some mold and stuff in the attic or different things, but like that. But
So the cost of that house came down quite a bit in this conversation.
it did, but probably the buyer still bought it at the price they were asking. A lot of the houses in the area have been really at a good price in the last 5 or 10 years, and people have been, the ones that wanted to sell have lowered it, so I don't know how much you can negotiate, but when it's a safety issue. I see a lot of homes with no access out of, they finish basements, no access out of the basements. So if you've got a bedroom down there, it's got to have 2 ways out, so it's got to have a huge window to get out, and that's all in the code, the height of the stairs and how to do that. You can't attach garages. I see all the time where someone attached a garage to a house, but they haven't given a 1-hour fire rating between the garage and the house. So cars are catching on fire all the time, all across the country, as you know. And if you just have wood between your house, or wood ceiling in your garage and wood to the house, and the car catches on fire, it's going to transfer to the house fairly quickly. So the code would require a 1 hour fire rating, so at least gives you an hour to get out of the house and maybe an hour for the fire department to get there and start extinguishing. Why insurance companies are not pushing that, I mean, because all these houses are insured, but they don't really meet the code. They're still being insured. At some point in time, the insurance companies will probably crack down and tell people, no, you've got to sheetrock the ceiling, sheetrock that wall. You can't have a window in your door between the kitchen and the garage. You can't have a bedroom with a door away from the garage to the bedroom. Stuff like that. It's going to come to that point, I would think, at some time. But, so someone buying a home, if they know they have to sheetrock, I mean, that could be a few $1,000s right there.
You mentioned a lot of asphalt roofing. I have 4 buildings and they're all standing seam sheet metal.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I'm not a metal fan. Standing seam, I can swallow a little bit. The other style, not so much, because the nails are exposed and the ice hooks onto the nails and it pulls them out over time, or it snaps them off, or the rubbers around those little screws that are exposed deteriorate over time and then you get leakage. So metal I'm not a fan of. Standing seam is a little bit different because the fasteners are hidden.
Yes.
So you don't have as much of an issue. The problem with metal roofs is a builder is not doing you a favor when he comes to your house and you've had asphalt for 30, 40, 50 years on your house, and a builder shows up and says, oh, I'm going to slap metal up there and 100 years you'll never have a problem and you want to shovel your roof and everything. So they put it on roofs that are not at least 5 or 6 pitch, really 6 pitches minimum. So they put it on a flat roof. Well, the snow doesn't slide off, it stays up there and it accumulates. So you haven't lost the snow load weights. But if it does slide off at some point in time, it lands in front of the garage doors. Like this house, if it had metal, the snow would land in front of the garage. If you're not home, if you're away at work and that lands in front of that door, when you get home at night, it's frozen solid. You're not going to get in your garage. Or if your car's inside, and it came off at night and you go to leave for work, you can't get out because you got a big hump of snow. So metal, you got to watch when you put metal on a building. What's on the ground in front of it? Is there a deck with railings? Is there a walkway? Is there garage doors? Is there an entry door that has a screen door that swings out? Because if that snow blocks a screen door in a fire, you're not opening that door, even though it swings into the living room. Your storm door is going to hold you. So metal, you got to watch where it goes. I mean, it's good in some situations. Very few is it safe to put on. So you'll see most of the people now that put metal, they put snow brakes up on the roof.
Right.
Well, you're putting snow brakes to keep the snow from sliding off, so why did you put metal? Because you wanted the snow to slide off. So it's like, okay, you can go around in a circle if you want. I saw a bank one time in one of the communities that sent out to the contractors to put metal on the bank, and I went up to see, and it was a fairly, I mean, the snow would slide off, but it was right in front of where all the customers are going to go in and out of the bank. So, that slides off and kills someone or injures someone as they're going into the bank. There's liability there. So, I notice now they've got snow brakes. They did contract someone to put metal, and they got snow brakes now on the roof. So, I noticed that the new custom house that they just did the roof on. Did you notice? 2 days ago, they're putting snow brakes all up there. So they got to keep the snow from killing someone underneath there. But yeah, so metal, like I said, it has its place. On a barn or somewhere, it can come off safely and not damage anything and not damage any decks or rails. And, it is a good product and lasts for, let's say, 100 years, but especially standing seam. I've put some in the past, but I advise the people, this is what's going to happen. I had a lady in Fort Fairfield that was buying a house. I did the inspection. I told her it used to be asphalt and it has defective metal up there now. So my recommendation is go back to the asphalt because of the pitch and all the other issues. She calls me a month later and you come to re-inspect, the bank wants to re-inspect, so I get there. They put metal back on the roof.
Well,
So I get up there to do an inspection of the metal, and sure enough, well, when I got there, the lady says, "Oh, I hired the, the people with the straw hats, and they came and they were here at 7 in the morning, and by 11 they were gone." And I was like, "Whoa!" They did the whole ranch in 3 hours. So I got up there, started looking at the job, and I was taking photos, and screws missing, and they were literally missing spots on the strapping, and they would put 4 or 5 screws before they'd hit it. It was a real mess. They used 5, 6 tubes of silicone around the chimney. So this is all in the report. Well, then the head of that organization, he called me, a week or 2 later, says, I heard you had some issues with my roofing. And I said, yeah, I did. And I explained to him, and I sent him the photos. And he went himself to look at the job, and he called me back. He says, boy, I'm sorry. He says, I saw, that was a new crew that I had, and I wasn't supervising them. And he said, I can see. So he himself went on that metal. He removed the metal and he repaired everything. And I had to go back a 3rd time to inspect his work. But he did it right the 3rd time. And, so you got to watch out. If someone says they're going to come in and slap that on, they'll be gone in a day. Be a little bit leery of, I had one just this summer in Frenchville. I get there, the ladder's up against the garage. I said, geez, they knew I was coming. They put the ladder against the garage, so I go up on the roof and I'm checking the new metal. I'm checking the metal. I didn't know it was new. And there's screws missing, and there's some popped out this high out. And I'm taking pictures of that, and I'm on my way down the ladder, and carpenter shows up and he says, "Jay, you got any issues?" And I said, "Yeah, I got a few photos and stuff." Not knowing that he was the guy putting the metal on. I said, yeah, there's pieces missing and screws missing and some popped out, and he said, really? I said, yeah. He was getting done within the hour.
Oh, wow.
He was going to leave it like that. He never even noticed there was screws missing.
It's a good thing you were there before.
Well, So then the new buyer was an elderly lady, retired from one of the banks in Madawaska, and she was on her own, and she says, she starts walking around the house with me as I'm doing the inspection. We're talking how the metal's going to break her porch, and her deck in the back, and her railings are already broken. They'll be even worse next. And showing her different things, and she was like, boys, I wish they wouldn't have put metal on that roof. Too late now. She was buying the house, and the metal was there. So she was probably going to take it off, she said, and re-roof it like it should be. And then you hire someone to go in the middle of winter and you shovel the roof. It's that simple.
yeah.
Yes. You can't, it's hard to find someone to shovel a flat, a 412 pitch metal roof. They're very dangerous to walk on in the winter. So if the snow doesn't slide off your metal roof and you have that accumulation, then you're stressing your rafters and your trusses, and then good luck finding someone to try to take the snow off. You don't want to hurt them. So, yeah. So, anything else? No.
Yeah. I think the most important thing that I've learned here tonight is that if a homeowner really, before even considering a sale or retrofit or rehab at any time, that it would be advisable to have the home inspected first, so that whatever's there now that needs attention before you do anything to it, you'll at least be aware.
Yeah.
That is,
You'd be surprised how many times I do an inspection and the homeowner follows me around. As I'm doing the inspection, he's listening, eavesdropping on what I'm finding, and he said, boys, if I'd have known that was like that, I would have fixed that years ago. I'm pointing out maybe a chafed wire that goes out through the floor is ready to catch on fire, and he said, oh my gosh, if I'd have known that was there, So they do, and pressure relief valves are very critical on hot water tanks. And I saw a lady on Market Street in a mobile home inspecting the home, and she had her hot water tank in the bedroom closet. Like most of the mobile homes, the hot water tanks are in the closet. And someone had capped the pressure relief because it was dripping, so they put a cap. And number one, the relief pipe's not supposed to have any threads on it at all. It has to be a specific size, specific length, and no ability to cap it. But someone had capped it, so I told the lady, I said, you know, you're sleeping next to pretty much of a bomb here. If that decides to go off, she's this far away from the closet door. So she had it fixed pretty quickly.
I also found over the last 2 years, I'm not going to get into specifics, but a couple of my kids were renting apartments in Fort Kent, and I went in after they moved in and discovered some things that even I, who has no experience with home inspections, there has to be some liability there, because they were living in some really dangerous environments.
Yeah.
Are landlords exempt from that, or?
No, there's liability issues. You got to provide a safe living environment for your tenants. If the tenant says, you know, I got a light that keeps flickering in the bedroom and the switch doesn't work, whatever, it's up to the landlord to fix that safely, you know. And the landlord actually can't go in there and do his own electrical. It's got to be certified electrician at that point. Landlords cannot do much on their properties when it comes to code stuff. It has to be done by certified. But you'll see it all the time. You'll see new hot water tanks being put in and stuff. And, you know, it should have been done by the plumber or a heating technician. Wood stoves is a big thing, and pellet stoves. Those cannot be vented on galvanized flue pipes, and I see that all the time. People put in their own furnace or their hot water, solid fuel burning. So the fire marshal tells me any solid fuel burning appliance has to be on the black steel pipe, not the galvanized stuff. Because there's a chemical reaction between the creosote and the coal or the pellets or the wood that's burning deteriorates the galvanized. So they want black steel only. You can't have a solid fuel burning unit like a pellet stove, coal stove, wood stove in automotive garages and stuff. So if your shop garage, even if it's detached from your house, and you park your car in there, you can't have a wood stove in there because of the fumes from the automobile gas tank. But you also have your lawnmower gas cans and all your other stuff. So you're not supposed to have solid fuel in garages, and I mean, we see it all the time. Insurance companies are still insuring those properties. So, yeah. At some point in time, there's a lot that goes on out there. Even if you have a chimney and you're no longer using a stove, and you put the little galvanized plug in the flue, that's got to be sealed with brick and mortar. That can't be just a little tin plug in there. Same thing with fireplace. If you're abandoning a chimney flue pipe, it's got to be sealed brick and mortar back, not just capped. I see, you know,
I got one of those.
coffee cans and stuffed in there. And I've seen rags stuffed in. Yeah, the fire. I mean, Cecil Hafford is fire marshal locally, so some of my reports, when I find issues with pellet stoves or chimneys, I'll list in the report to contact either the local fire chief or the state fire marshal's office, and they may come to take a look at it or issue a permit for it. Every chimney going up through the house is supposed to have a 2-inch airspace around it. So when you're in your basement, you're looking at your chimney going up through, there should be an airspace all the way around it, but if there's a fire in the basement, you don't want the air to be pulled up to the next floor, so you have to have a 26 gauge metal flashing around there. They call that fire stop flashing. So if there's a fire in the basement, it doesn't follow the chimney up all the way up through to the attic. But most of the chimneys I've seen built over the years the wood is built right up against the chimney block, and that'll catch fire over time. If you have a chimney fire or the chimney gets hot enough, it will catch the wood. And there was a brand new house built and placed it, $1 million house, 3 miles off the main Route 11. The first time, the homeowner was from California, first time he made a fire in his wood stove, it caught the main beam of the house on fire. Because the mason was from Canada, and he had built it for a local contractor. No airspace, and a cinder went through where his mortar joints were, caught the beam on fire. Luckily, the homeowner had a garden hose handy and he put it out himself, but he had the builder come back in and replace that wood beam. The house is already constructed. Pull out that wood beam and put in a steel beam. So that's money.
Yeah.
And they came when I was code officer at the time, and the people in California came and they said, how come no one ever came to inspect that? And I said, place that number one is not going to have a building inspector. But the state of Maine at the time wasn't even requiring inspections. And every time a chimney mason builds a chimney since 1980, there is a form where that chimney mason has to list his name, address, and at the bottom sign that that chimney that he's built meets every fire code that's pertinent at the time. And you ask any chimney mason around here and they probably never even seen that form. They don't know anything about it, but it is out there and they're supposed to be signing it, and it doesn't happen.
So even if we assume that we have that done when we built, we are assuming, we don't know for sure.
Well, if you had a new chimney built, yeah, that mason should have been able to sign that form.
Okay,
And then he would have assumed liability that was built
Okay.
to the current fire code.
okay.
But they never do that. They build a chimney, and I'm not to say yours is not built right, but there's a lot out there that are not built too safely.
Right.
Now, with code, you said, did I hear you right when you said any town that's less than 4,000 people doesn't have to?
They have to follow the code. They have to build to the current code, which would now be the 2021. But it's not going to be inspected by the municipality. The municipality doesn't need to send an inspector to go do it.
Oh, I see.
So the contract, who's ever building that property should be following the code and would be able to sign a paper saying, yeah, I built it right to the code and it meets every pertinent code. But you won't see that happening. But yeah, they're supposed to build the code. But again, the state hasn't trained any of these guys, and they don't have the book, so I don't know how they can build to the code if they don't have the book, you know. But it's happening all over, and that's one of the things with the state legislature is they came up with a number of 4,000. And when I was code officer, we had 4,000 and some. So, okay, I've got to enforce the building code. And then when I left the job, there was less than 4,000. So for a period, they didn't have to enforce the code. But now I think we're back over 4,000, so they have to enforce the code. Whether it's getting enforced or not, I don't know. But
We have to be real smart if we're going to be building or buying a home. The one who's going to,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's good to ask questions, and now with the internet, you can always,
Yeah.
you can find all these codes online. You go to maine.gov, and you can find a lot of the plumbing codes and electrical stuff. You had a question?
Yeah, would it be a good idea, let's say we've been there 32 years, just for the safety of it, have an inspection? If the house is not for sale and we're not looking to sell it, but what would be the cost for a full inspection?
Depending on what I'm looking at, if I'm doing a full, and I'm not expensive compared to some that I've heard that are more money, but if I'm doing a full inspection, the electrical, plumbing, and the whole thing, I charge $400, and then usually if I'm leaving town, I do $50 travel, and that's real cheap, because most of the others are probably a third more than that. But I'm not here to try to drum up any business, and by all means, use anyone you want, because I'm overwhelmed with work right now anyways. But so, you know, I pick and choose which ones that I go to. Sometimes people say, you never answer your phone. Well, if I got too much work lined up. So
Any
like I
time
said,
of the year, do you not have a lot of work?
no. Between Can-Am and Alan will vouch for that, and Sometimes in the spring, yeah. I think that's when Don contacted me last spring when things were a little bit slower. I said, yeah, I can do a presentation, but now I'm kicking myself in the butt. 'Cause I missed a few hours this afternoon and I'm not doing my
And you had
homework
to
tonight.
plan for this.
Yeah, I had to plan for it. But yeah, I thank Don because he came over and we
Well,
worked
we're
for an
grateful
hour or
because
two.
it's a lot of great information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can go, I mean, I still did touch on septic systems. I got stories. You wouldn't believe some of the environments that people live in really shouldn't be. There's a house, St. Francis, where I was sent by the community to find if their septic was working. I could smell it when I walked around the house, but I couldn't find the septic. So I knocked on the door and a lady let me in. I said, I gotta go down in the basement to see where the septic pipe goes out so I can try to find. And the last step down the stairs, I put my flashlight on and her toilet pipe had been broken for probably a year. And that before I went down, she said, well, my son tells me there's a pipe broken in the basement, but I didn't think much of it. And I almost lost my lunch. But that was bad, and she had one son. They were living in that environment, and they ended up condemning the house and tearing the house down. But for over a year, they had flushed everything right into the basement.
How could they stand it?
And there was another place, St. Francis, that was a restaurant that was opening, and the septic got put in, and I inspected the septic. Everything was fine, and licensed plumber was there doing all the work, so I didn't have too many issues. But in the meantime, someone was responsible to connect what the plumber was doing in the building to what the guy was doing for the septic, but no one connected that pipe. And it was on a slab, but the crawl space was already there. So maybe a year or so, and then that was a restaurant. It was dumping underneath, and the plumber is the one who called me. He said, I went to service that, and there was literally a carpet of about 4 inches of green that had grown on the slab. And at first he didn't know what it was, but then he realized it was a pipe that had broken. So, see a lot of stuff. Yeah, a lot of stuff. And not healthy. You wonder why sometimes people are sick.
Well, just hearing about that radon there, that's
Radon.
mind-boggled with that. I mean, and look at remembering people with lung cancer,
Yeah.
or difficulty breathing.
Yeah.
They've got, wow.
Are the short and long-term tests as effective as,
On radon?
yeah?
In the bigger cities, you get a radon tester to come in, he's gonna have his own equipment. He's gonna set that up for 48 hours, and it's gonna print out the details, and he'll have the results right in front of him. Problem with that is, you gotta get those monitors tested every 6 months. And there's only 2 places in the United States that can test them to make sure they're accurate. So and they cost $3,500 a piece. So you need to almost have 2 at all times. So when one's sent out to get certified and calibrated, the other one's in service, but when it gets back, you've got to send the other one. So like for me, the few that I do, $3,500 twice to have that machine. So I find when I do my smaller tests, and I do the test, 48 hours, close it up, send it to the lab in Maine, in Winslow, and I get the results in 2 days, and it's cheap. It's $175 for the whole thing. And I mean, the results are certified results. And I tell people we got to wait 2 days to get the results. It's not that big of a deal.
Because there are some of those tests that you put up for months.
For months?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's supposed to be 48 hours, 96 max. And it all depends, it depends on the humidity of the building and the location, and there's all those specific things. That's why you got to be certified to make sure before you set the test up it's in the right spot. And away from drafts and different temperatures, and then how many times the windows are being opened and closed. And I had one in Caribou that I set up. When I first started the Radon, there was a company called Radon Analytical, and they would send me the monitor in the mail, overnight it to me. I'd go set it up, do all the legwork for them, and send the machine out. So I was having to be in Caribou, so I drove by the house that I had set it up the day before, and had all the windows and the doors open and stuff. So they wanted to fudge the results. Whether there was radon or not, they were fudging the results. So,
For what purpose?
well, they're trying to sell the house, and they didn't want to have radon, so, you know, while the machine's running, they open the windows and the doors.
Only in America.
Yeah,
It's a good thing you passed by.
yeah, yeah. So when the machine went out, you got to fill out the paperwork, and I said, that's what I told them. I said it wasn't an accurate test. That company I no longer do. I just do it my own now. The little test kits. You can buy radon test kits at SW Collins or Lowe's, and you'll send it to a lab, something like in Texas or whatever. So if you want to do your own in your house, you can do it anytime, and you'll get pretty accurate results if you follow the directions. And then if I do a radon inspection during a real estate transaction and the results are higher than 4 picocure liters, that's the level is 4, the number 4. Picocure liters is how it's rated. If it's higher than 4, then you got to retest. And if you retest and it's higher again, then you got to mitigate automatically. You got to get in the pump station right away. So.
What's the highest you've seen?
500 times higher than the 4.
Wow.
That's what the report read. So. Yeah, and it wasn't an old house.
Well, the second test, what's the maximum? Still 4?
Still always 4, yeah. A normal house is around 2. Every breath you take, you're breathing in, but at 2, you're safe, what they consider safe. But at 4 is the level now, yeah, you could potentially get lung cancer. But when you test 20 and 30 and 40, and when I test, it's 2 different vials. They have to be placed X amount of inches apart. And so they give me results for both vials, but I'll do the average at that point, so you can get an average.
I know someone who's been battling COPD,
Yeah,
and I'm wondering if that could be a possibility.
could very well be.
Wow. Yeah.
But we see a lot of respiratory problems up here, and a lot of it is the wet basements
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, because when you take a shower, the fan should run up. When you go in the bathroom, the fan should start automatically. So you don't have the option of opening or closing your fan, because you're going to be in the shower and your fan's not running, so all that humidity is going in the house. So I like to see when you go in the bathroom, the fan starts. Then when you do your clothes dryer, all that humidity's got to leave the building.
Yeah.
And I had one guy just in town here that in the winter months he had an open basement, wasn't finished, but he would disconnect his dryer pipe and he'd put it in the basement because he was saving on heat. But he's putting on humidity. But then I did a research online, and the fumes out of a clothes dryer are toxic. Because you got your laundry soaps and stuff, all the chemicals that are in that. The dryer's taking those chemicals out and blowing it. He was blowing it into his basement, so him and his wife both sick. Well, if you're blowing your toxic air into your house. Range hoods got to be vented, because if you're boiling water or frying hamburger, most of those range hoods that aren't vented just blow it back to your forehead. So if you like a greasy forehead, I mean, it works. But it ruins the cabinets and all that humidity in the house again. So
It reminds me, we bought a camp, and that's exactly what the guy did. He vented his dryer in the cellar,
In the basement, yeah.
in the basement, and the humidity down there was
Unreal.
awful. 70, 75.
Yeah. Couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
a good humidity level is like 45% relative humidity. But when it gets above 55 and 60, 65, that's when you're starting to get issues. So I tell people, buy a little humidity gauge. They sell them real cheap.
Yeah.
And just plop it, and within an hour or two, it'll tell you humidity. Move it from one room to the other.
Yeah.
I see them put a nylon stocking over the vent, the dryer vent, so it collects the lint,
Yeah.
but lets off,
Yeah. Lint's very flammable too,
Yeah.
so.
Yes.
That's yeah, my mother used to have a nylon soft container.
Yeah.
Yeah. They also had one of those magic heat units on the furnace.
oh, yeah.
You ever see those? And you can,
Yeah.
a little rod you can clean. But those, all the little tubes leaked, and we had a finished basement at the house, and the ceilings were black and the walls were black. Of course, that builds up over time. You don't notice, but when you pull a picture off the wall, and all of a sudden, you're like, whoa, what's causing all this creosote and soot and everything into the house was that little magic heater. And when I was in high school, I would stand under that, and it would blow in the morning, so I'd dry my hair under it. So, you know, breathing all the toxic fumes. Some of the things we did when we were young. Okay, any more questions?
So we all set?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very good.
I'm scared to go back to my house.
There's never a perfect house, I'll tell you that.
For sale.